as Sarah's son as well. So it was perfect. Abram's natural-born son, and it would be Sarai's son also. He would be the heir. It would just be a tremendous deal all the way around. But what happens? What happens when they circumvent God's law? All of a sudden, Hagar said, wait a minute, I don't like this anymore. So Hagar is putting a monkey wrench in this whole sport, isn't she? Because she just doesn't want to play along. She's not happy. All of a sudden, this is not working out. So somehow, when Abram went against God's plan, it didn't quite work out as well as he hoped it would. Let's go check verses 15 and 16 in the same chapter. In the meantime, just to fill you in, Hagar went away for a little while because Sarai chased her out because of the fight they had between them. So Hagar comes back. Verse 15. So Hagar bore Abram a son. Abram called the name of his son, whom Hagar bore Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old. Hagar bore Ishmael to him. 86 years old. That's pretty good. Pretty good to be having children, I'd say. We don't see a lot of that today, I don't think. Maybe Hugh Hefner, but I don't know anybody else who has some at 86, maybe Strom Thurmond in Carolina might have had some, but or maybe just, it doesn't matter. But 86 years old, now he's got a natural-born son. And life is good now, right? He's got the son, it can go on. But that's not good enough. And then God comes back, right? In chapter 17, verse 15 and 21, God said to Abraham, as for your wife, you not want to call her Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. And I will bless her. Indeed, I will give you a son by her. I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. The king of all people shall come from her. Abraham fell on his face and laughed, said in his heart, will a child be born to a man 100 years old? And will Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? Here's the key. Abraham said to God, oh, that Ishmael may live before thee. So here Abraham wants Ishmael. He still don't understand. Ishmael is it. He doesn't need any more. By the way, I'm 100 years old, God, do you notice that? Sarah is a beautiful woman. She's 90. She didn't have a child. It's just possible. So he's laughing at God. Perhaps a nervous laugh, but a laugh nonetheless. How does God respond? No, but Sarah, your wife, shall bear you a son. You shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him. As for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I will bless him, make him fruitful, and multiply him exceedingly. He shall become the father of 12 princes. I will make him a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you at this season next year. And so now we have even more, right? Abraham, it's never enough because it's always more. Abraham all of a sudden now realizes his wife's going to have a child. It's going to be Isaac. But you know what Isaac means, don't you? Isaac means he laughs. And so I think it's a very appropriately named. So they're going to have this child. And this child indeed is going to be the child on whom the nations are going to rest. Is that possible? Is that even possible? We really believe that story. How can this be? 100 years old, 90 years old, and yet, they're going to have this child together. So that's probably the way in the story, but wait, there's more. There's still more. And we need more verses at 10 o'clock. Wait, there's more. I have more for you. In chapter 18, the Lord speaking again to Abram. He said, I will surely return to you this time next year. Behold, Sarah, your wife, shall have a son. And Sarah was listening to the tent door, which was behind him, probably, snooping, right? Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in age. Sarah was past childbearing age. Sarah laughed to herself, saying, after I have become old, I shall have pleasure, my Lord being old also? And the Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I indeed bear a child when I am old, so old? Is anything too difficult for the Lord? This is God's response, this is key. Is anything too difficult for the Lord? At the appointed out time, I'll return to you, this time next year, and Sarah will have a son. Sarah denied it, however, saying, I did not laugh. Now she was afraid. And he said, no, you did laugh. So now Abraham and Sarah had a little thing going on here, right? Because he knows that she laughed. She just wanted, now Sarah's a little scared. Do you feel the power of God working in this? All of a sudden, Sarah laughed and laughed. That's crazy. I'm 90 years old. This isn't going to happen. We're not going to have a baby. It's just not the way things work. And we've got Ishmael and we've got Eliezer, so we don't need this. We just don't need this. So here we have God as a puzzle. There's no clue. Poor Sarah is clueless. Is that fair to say? Sarah has no clue what's going on here. And still we go on. We go on. One more. Chapter 21, birth of Isaac. The Lord took note of Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah as he had promised. So Sarah conceived and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the appointed time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, as Sarah bore Isaac. He circumcised his son when he was 8 days old. Abraham was 100 years old, and the son Isaac was born to him. And Sarah says, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh with me. And she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. So finally, here we have Sarah still clueless. She's still clueless. Verse 7, she says, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? She still doesn't quite get this whole idea, what God's trying to do in their lives. She's still going back to Hagar and Ishmael and also Eliezer. What's going on here? But yet here she is 90 years old. And she has born a son. Of course, we know the rest of the story, which we're not going to go into now. We know the rest of the story, don't we? In chapter 22, where Abraham, whose impatience all through this story is obvious, now his faith is solid. What happened in chapter 22? We go up on the mountain, right? And God commands Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. And Abraham, if you read that part, he does this without questioning. No question in that where Abraham goes, he's ready to slay his own son. And God honors his faith and says, no, don't kill the boy. I see your faith is strong. And so Isaac is spared. Abraham finds a ram, and his faith is strong, and that's how that Isaac story ends. And we realize we're going to further from there, right? Isaac brings into the world Jacob and Esau, and the rest, as they say, of history from that point on. Literally history, right? They go backward on the whole concept. But all throughout this narrative, we see this idea of impatience. Abraham is not a patient man. God made his promise to Abraham, but when are you going to come through on this? Maybe we were kids when our folks had promised us something. When? You're going to get this. Well, when? I want it now. And so this whole idea of promising and waiting and being impatient. In the end, though, in this story, God honors Abraham over and above his impatience. So Abraham's faith goes over his impatience. So God was able to work around Abraham's impatience to make his will be done. This whole story, that's what's going on here, right? And so it's important to understand that no matter what Abraham did, God had his perfect plan. And no matter what Eliezer and Hagar and Ishmael, it didn't matter. Because God knew what he was doing. Even Abraham's impatience couldn't stop that. So that's good for Abraham. But what about us? We're an impatient society, aren't we? I think maybe some of us are not, but some of us probably are. I am, very much so. I want everything right away because that's the society we live in, right? And so we have this idea we want everything today, we got to have it right now. Impatience is the thing. But in this case, there's good news and bad news. The bad news is we are impatient. We always have them, we always will be. We have many flaws. That's only one. As a society, we are impatient. We don't want to wait. And so how do we fix that? Here's the good news. The good news is, just as in Abraham's case, God will overcome our impatience and all of our flaws, right? God has this plan for our lives. We can't even see it, may not even be aware of, but it's there. And God was working this plan all along, whether we know it or not. And sometimes we rebel against that, don't we? We say, not now, God, or when. We question God at times, right? But God's working His plan. Like Abraham, He's working His plan in our lives, each of us here. God's got a plan for our lives. And He's working this plan. And what we do, He's going to work it until we get it right. So that's the good news. God overcomes all these weaknesses in us. So God has a plan for us. We are part of that plan. But the trick is we have to realize that our impatience does not help God. That does not help. And another thing we also must realize is that we have to obey the eternal rhythm talked about earlier. This eternal rhythm, because God is the rhythm setter. So the challenge for us, I think, here is to really, in our quiet moments, think about this for a moment and think, and try to pick up on and understand and pick up this eternal rhythm. Try to really sense that and feel that. And then our challenge then will be, once we found that rhythm, understand who the rhythm maker is. Because it's God, right? And then once we find that rhythm, now it's God, what we really need to do then is to join this chorus.